Hello again. Now let's discuss one more very important topic, ADAS homologation. This ADAS homologation is extremely important in the sense that if a particular ADAS feature is not approved or type approved in the homologation, it cannot be forwarded to productionizing or marketing. So ADAS homologation is extremely important. Now let's touch upon the various certifying bodies, what is meant by homologation, what are the goals, what are the processes, what are the various norms, etc. in this particular video. Homologation is the critical checkpoint where a vehicle is equipped with the ADAS feature, where a vehicle equipped with ADAS feature gets the green light to hit the road. So whichever vehicle is equipped with ADAS feature, it gets a green light or green signal or ready to go signal to hit the road. It's essentially a formal certification process that verifies the ADAS system meets stringent performance requirements and adheres to the regulations set by the government bodies. Now, assuming that you are coming from mechanical background and assuming that you have some kind of experience in emission regulation or emission homologation, you will clearly understand that just like a powertrain or IC engines have emission regulations, even ADAS systems has some stringent performance requirements, and unless and until those performance requirements are adhered to, the government body will not approve that ADAS feature. Now, here's a breakdown of homologation in ADAS validation. The most important first step is goal. What is the goal of homologation? Homologation verifies that ADAS functions on the vehicle meet the safety and performance requirements mandated by regulatory bodies. Alright, this word is important, mandated by regulatory bodies. Next comes the process. This involves a series of tests and assessment to demonstrate the ADAS system's effectiveness under various conditions, and these tests can be real world driving scenarios or simulations designed to mimic real world situations. Usually the simulations or the real world driving scenarios are designed by the regulatory body. For example, in India, it may be ARI, or in Europe it may be NCAP, or in America it may be FMVSS. So depending upon the regulatory body which is deciding the process of the homologation, this simulation or the real world driving scenario is designed. Next comes the challenge. The validating the ADAS systems, particularly those with complex AI based decision making, poses a challenge. Covering all possible scenarios through physical testing is nearly impossible. Covering all possible scenarios through physical testing is nearly impossible, and that is the reason simulations is usually preferred. But even simulation has its own limitations. Okay, of course simulation tools are playing more and more important role, but simulation can never be what you call on par with driving scenario. It can be maybe equivalent or nearly equivalent to the real world scenario, but it can never be exactly on par with the real world scenario. Now, what are the various regulatory bodies? We will see very elaborately. The landscape of ADAS regulations is constantly evolving as technology matures. And here are some predominant regulatory bodies that play a key role. Okay, this is in this table. First we will see the region, next the name of the regulatory body, and the name of these key standards. Of course, you would have guessed that elaborately understanding all these key standards is well beyond the scope of this particular tutorial. Okay, each and every tutorial, or sorry, each and every standard is almost 1000 pages. So going through that and extracting the particular ADAS features is well beyond the scope of this tutorial. So the people who are interested in ADAS homologation, or tomorrow whoever get to start a career in ADAS homologation, they will automatically get access to this information. But as of now, you remember these are the regulatory bodies and these are the key standards. First is the European Union. The regulatory body is UNECE, and the European Commission. And the key standard is UNR79, UNR152, and the GS regulation. Next is the United States. When it comes to United States, the most important thing is FMVSS, NHTSA, and SAE. Alright, and the key standards are FMVSS 126 ESC, and ESC is electronic stability control, and FMVSS 150, which takes care of the vehicle to vehicle communication. Next comes the China. Chinese regulatory body is MIIT, CATARC and the GB standards. Next comes the key standards which are promulgated by these regulatory bodies. The key standards are GB 11551 AEB and GBT 26773 LKA. Now coming to the Japanese region, the more important regulatory body is MLIT or JAMA, which is called JAMA, and the key standards are safety regulation article 18 and the GIS standards. Now these GIS standards are not only take care of the emission regulation, they also take care of the ADAS regulation, they take care of the manufacturer regulation, they take care of the regulations of the entire automobile. All right. Now coming to South Korean region, the regulatory body is MOTIE or and KATRI. Now a KMVSS, Korean Motor Vehicle Safety Standards. For example, in this FMVSS also it is Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards. The moment you see federal, you can immediately connect it to United States. Now coming to India, the more important regulatory body is ARI and partially MORTH. Okay, but more important regulatory body is ARI, and the most important standard as far as this ADAS is concerned is AIS 145 for ADAS features. Next is the Australian region, and the regulatory body is Australian Design Rules. And coming to the key standards, ADR 35/06, and this is proposed for AEB. All right. Now let's see the exact step-by-step journey for type approval. Type approval is nothing but the process where a particular feature is homologated. Now coming to this application and documentation, the car manufacturer initiates the process by submitting an application to relevant governing body. It may be NHTSA or UNECE, and this application includes comprehensive documentation detailing the ADAS system, its functionalities and how it meets the performance requirements. Okay. Now coming to technical review and assessment, the regulatory experts meticulously examine the submitted documents, and this involves analyzing the ADAS design, safety concept and potential failure modes. Now this is exactly similar to homologation of the emission standards. First you submit the application, then the concerned regulatory body, they go through all the application of the various aspects of the application, and next testing and validation. This is the heart of the type approval. Here, just like the engine, even in engine you go to ARI and test. Hence the ADAS system undergoes rigorous testing to demonstrate its performance in real world scenarios. This can involve physical testing and also virtual testing. Of course, IC engine is usually physical test, virtual testing is very meagerly prevalent, but when it comes to ADAS, both physical and virtual testing are equally important. Vehicles equipped with ADAS features are driven on the test tracks under controlled conditions, simulating various situations. Coming to virtual testing, the advanced simulation tools create virtual environments mimicking real world scenarios for comprehensive testing in a safe and controlled manner. Okay. The penultimate step or the last but one step is evaluation and approval. Once testing is complete, the governing body evaluates the results against the established performance requirements, and if everything aligns, the ADAS system receives type approval, granting permission to use granting permission for its use in the vehicle sold in the particular region. Okay, understand this sentence carefully. It is in this step that you are granted permission for its use in the vehicle sold in that particular region. I am sure everybody would have gathered that without this permission, you just cannot sell that particular product in that particular region. Now coming to post approval monitoring, even after receiving approval, some regulatory bodies requires manufacturers to monitor real world performance of their ADAS systems. So this is like post production also there is some kind of monitoring. So once in a while a regulatory body can descend into the vehicle and ensure that even after production the system is meeting the norms. This is called post approval monitoring. Now this whole thing, type approval journey application, technical review, testing, evaluation and post approval, or identical with the identical to the emission testing. Now, what are the key considerations in the type approval? Okay, and I already mentioned functional safety is a very important concept, and this concept emphasizes designing and implementing the ADAS system with safety in mind, minimizing the risk of malfunctions. Okay, and safety of the intended functionality, this ensures the ADAS feature operate as intended within the limitations communicated to the driver. Okay, these two key considerations are extremely critical and important. And now when it comes to security and privacy, type approval considers cyber security measures also to protect the ADAS systems for hacking and potential privacy concerns related to data collected by the system. Now, in the module mentioning the cyber security, I will elaborately explain the various types of cyber security, the various points of cyber attack, and how you can ensure those cyber attacks are mitigated or defeated. Now, what is the role of simulation in homologation? When it comes to role, testing every possible driving scenario in real world is practically impossible and time consuming. This is where advanced simulation tools come into play. They allow engineers to create virtual environments that mimic real world situations with precise control over variables like weather, lighting and traffic patterns. This enables comprehensive testing of ADAS functionalities in a safe and efficient manner. So, this is something which I touched upon, especially in a country like India, where driving scenarios can be very chaotic or very haphazard. Developing all the scenarios or testing the vehicle on road in every scenario is next to impossible. That is where the simulation plays a very important role. So, by successfully navigating the homologation process, car manufacturers ensure their vehicles equipped with ADAS features meet the high bar for safety and performance set by the regulation. This in turn fosters the public trust in the technology and paves the way for the future for safer and more automated driving experiences. Okay, so understand this very carefully. So, the purpose of this homologation is to foster the public trust. When a public or the end consumer knows that a such and such a component or such and such a product has been approved by the regulatory body, he can use the vehicle fitted with that particular product with lot of confidence and lot of trust. Now, coming to the key ADAS features requiring homologation. Well, I request all of you to pause the video and observe this slide very carefully, but I will also clearly explain. When it comes to automatic emergency braking, it prevents collision by applying braking automatically, and this is mandated in Europe, US, Japan. Alright, and when it comes to lane keeping assist, prevents unintended lane departure. This is again regulated very important in Euro NCAP scenario and NHTSA and GB standards. So, in the NCAP perspective, NHTS perspective and the GB point of view, this LKA is a very important feature. Now, next comes the adaptive cruise control, or acronymed ACC. The purpose is to adjust the speed based on the traffic. Now, what are the regulatory relevances? It is relevant in UNECE, FMVSS, China GB. FMVSS, I already told you, Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Services and Safety. Next comes the blind spot detection, alerts driver to vehicles in the blind spots, required in Europe, US and Korea. Actually, many regulatory bodies opine, or they are of the opinion that the blind spot detection is a very important ADAS feature. That's why it is mandated in Europe, US and Korea. Okay, I already explained you what is blind spot, and I already told you why identifying this blind spot or ability to see within this blind spot is so important to avoid an accident. Next comes intelligent speed assistance. Intelligent speed assistance limits the speed based on traffic signs, and it is mandated by European General Safety Regulation. Next comes the driver monitoring system. This detects the driver drowsiness and distraction, and it is mandated, or it is considered to mandated in Europe and China. Okay, still a lot of debate is going on which features have to be mandated and which features can be left optional. Now next comes the traffic sign recognition. This reads and displays speeds, and this is already a part of Euro NCAP scoring. So if a car which is sold in Europe does not have this traffic sign recognition, it may or may not receive 5-star rating. Next comes the parking assistance, which is purpose is to automate the parking maneuvers and tested for safety in multiple regions. It is tested in safety for multiple regions. Now, what are the various challenges in ADAS homologation? Okay, the most important thing is diversion regulation. Lack of global harmonization increases cost. For example, a vehicle which is manufactured in India should be sold in Europe. Then this diversity regulations, they pose a very important challenge or a very difficult challenge for the vehicle manufacturer. Next is the real world validation, which ensures ADAS works in all environments. Next is cyber security risk. Well, as I told you as I already mentioned in the module about this cyber security, this cyber security risks are more and more increasing focus on the hacking vulnerabilities. And when it comes to data privacy laws, well, GDPR European regulation and China's data localization, they are the main challenges. And of course the evolving technology, keeping regulations adopted with AI advancement. Now as AI is making more and more rapid foray or advent into the automotive market, keeping the regulations updated with the AI advancements is the most important challenge. So it's just matter of time that regulatory bodies are enforced to make some regulations in the AI perspective. Okay, next comes the future trends and the harmonization efforts. When it comes to future trends and harmonization efforts, this UNECE WP.29 leading global harmonization. So 78 member countries are trying to form one union where they can harmonize this ADAS efforts. Next is ISO SAE collaboration. This also purpose is to standardize autonomous driving levels, and China's growing influence setting its own standards. Okay, because China is well ahead of the many countries as far as ADAS is concerned, it is setting its own standards. And coming to US Europe alignment, potential mutual pattern agreements is a future trend, or this is about to happen. Not sure when it will happen, but it will happen in near future. Next comes the India and Asia developing localized ADAS frameworks. Now, despite India being on par with many countries, it is a part of the Asian countries, and moreover in a country like India where the right hand steering drive is present, ADAS framework should be localized. Okay, localizing the ADAS framework is the most important trend or the most important prevalent aspect as far as ADAS is concerned. Next comes the future trends and expected challenges in India. Now, upcoming regulations, well, some countries are trying to mandate AEB, some countries are trying to standardize the DMS, and some countries are trying to standardize the V2X communication. Pilot projects in smart cities. Okay, this already standardizing the V2X communication, some pilot projects in some cities is going on. So we don't know by when this will be approved. Hopefully in near future all this V2X communication pilot projects be successful and they are implemented. Thank you for your patient listening.